human trafficking private investigations, and sex trafficking private investigations. Sex trafficking occurs when a pimp forces human beings of any gender, age, race, ethnicity, nationality, and sexuality into sexual prostitution for money, goods, or services. Human trafficking is basically the same thing as sex trafficking, but it basically expands the definition of trafficking from forced prostitution to other forced labor, getting sold into marriage, etc. Both sex trafficking and human trafficking can have terrible effects on those forced to work as labor slaves, engage in forced sex as prostitutes, and/or enter forced marriages in exchange for goods, services, and/or money. Nevertheless, both sex trafficking and human trafficking remain gigantic, global, often underground businesses in which many people engage. Our private investigations agencies, human trafficking private investigators, and sex trafficking private detectives at our private investigation agency in Ardmore, OK, conduct sex trafficking investigations and human trafficking private investigations internationally. Our human trafficking investigators and sex trafficking detectives at our private detective agency work on behalf of the families and victims of sex trafficking and human trafficking, as well as the defendants the state of Oklahoma or federal government have charged with human trafficking. What is human trafficking? Human trafficking is essentially the use of threats, fraud, coercion to get forced labor via sex or other manual labor which brings about money, rewards, property, or exchange of services. Human trafficking is highly illegal and immoral, and human traffickers are extremely manipulative and dangerous. What is sex trafficking? Sex trafficking is a form of human trafficking. According to our sex crimes private investigators and human trafficking private investigators at our private investigation agency that conduct sex trafficking private investigations and human trafficking private investigations, sex trafficking involves forcing others to perform sexual acts and engage in prostitution. So the sex trafficker or pimp can gain monetary rewards such as money or property or an exchange of services beneficial to the sex trafficker or pimp. Why do people enter human trafficking and sex trafficking? Vulnerable individuals tend to enter sex trafficking and human trafficking because they often lack families or familial support, are housing insecure, lack food, clothing, and other survival necessities. These individuals may have addictions to drugs, alcohol, and other substances which make them dependent upon human traffickers and/or sex traffickers and their quick access to drugs. Some people are merely forced into human trafficking and sex trafficking from the beginning. If someone you know and love has become a victim of human trafficking or a victim of sex trafficking and needs assistance, then hire the best sex trafficking private detective or hire the best sexual assault private detective from our private detective agency in Moore today for assistance in conducting human trafficking investigations or sex trafficking investigations on your behalf. Time is of the essence, so contact a sex crimes investigator or human trafficking investigator from our private investigations agency in Oklahoma today. Also, if the state of Oklahoma or federal government has charged you with human trafficking or sex trafficking, then you need to hire a human trafficking private investigator or should hire the best criminal private detective from our private investigations agency near me to conduct criminal private investigations on your behalf. Our rape private detectives and sex trafficking private investigators are highly skilled and also work closely on behalf of criminal defendants. They're criminal defense attorneys in OKC, and they're bail bondsmen in OKC that writes bail bonds in Oklahoma City. What is a human trafficking private investigator at your private investigation agency? Human trafficking private investigators and sex trafficking detectives at our private investigation agency in Mustang, OK, generally locate victims of human trafficking and sex trafficking via their sex trafficking private investigations and human trafficking private investigations. Our sex trafficking investigators and human trafficking detectives at our private investigation agency most often conduct these sex trafficking private investigations and human trafficking private investigations on behalf of the families and friends of the human trafficking victims and sex trafficking victims. Our sex trafficking detectives and human trafficking detectives from our private investigation agency in Norman, Oklahoma, Do not only conduct human trafficking investigations and sex trafficking private investigations on behalf of victims of sex trafficking and human trafficking, though. Our human trafficking private investigators and sex trafficking private investigators at our private investigation agency also works on behalf of criminal defendants the state of Oklahoma or federal government has accused of sex trafficking and/or human trafficking crimes. Yes, our human trafficking investigators near me and sex trafficking private investigators near me at our private detective agency near me work collaboratively with criminal defense attorneys near me, at bail bondsmen in Oklahoma City that write bail bonds in OKC, and with criminal defendants facing many years behind bars in bleak and dangerous prisons. When representing criminal defendants as a part of top-tier criminal defense teams, our criminal trafficking private investigators and sex trafficking private detectives at our private investigation agency strive to get sex trafficking and human trafficking criminal charges dropped or help criminal defense attorneys in Oklahoma secure acquittals. If your friend or loved one has become the victim of human trafficking or sex trafficking and you want to help bring them home, please hire the best human trafficking private investigator or hire the best sex trafficking private investigator from our private detective agency in Guthrie, OK, to conduct sex trafficking investigations or human trafficking investigations on your behalf. You do not want your friends or loved ones to suffer the pain and agony of forced labor, constant rape, the contracting of incurable, deadly sexual transmitted diseases, beatings, murder, etc. These are terrible atrocities that no one should ever have to suffer. Make the right decision and hire a sex trafficking private investigator or hire a human trafficking private investigator from the best private investigation agency near me to conduct human trafficking private investigations and sex trafficking private investigations on your behalf. Let our licensed sex trafficking investigators near me and human trafficking investigators near me from our private investigation agency in the Village, OK, to find human trafficking victims and to find sex trafficking victims and bring them home. Do not let your friends and loved ones suffer alone and in silence. Likewise, if the state of Oklahoma or the federal government has charged you with human trafficking or sex trafficking, then our human private eyes and sex trafficking private eyes at our private investigation agency in War Acres will work together with your criminal defense attorney in Oklahoma and bail bondsman in Oklahoma that writes bail bonds in OKC to help secure your release. You do not want to sit for many years in a prison facing rape, beatings, and murder at the hands of murderers and arsonists who make anyone who harms women, children, and the elderly. Even if those things do not occur, the government will make you rot away inside cold, dark walls and will force you to eat bad food. Even if you do get out, the government and society will label you as a sex offender, possibly for the rest of your life. Sound fun? If not, then make the right decision to hire the best human trafficking private investigator or hire the best sex trafficking private investigator at our private investigation agency in Nicholas Hills, Oklahoma, to conduct human trafficking private investigations or sex trafficking private investigations now before time runs out. How can you tell if someone is a victim of human trafficking? There are many telltale signs that someone is a victim of human trafficking. Our human trafficking private detectives and sex trafficking private detectives at our private investigation agency have received special training in what to look for when seeking out victims of human trafficking. Indeed, the most common traits and characteristics of human trafficking victims are as follow. The boss holds all employees' legal paperwork, such as passports, work visas, birth certificates, etc. Many quote-unquote employees are living together in a very tiny space, which is often unclean. The living conditions of the workers are terrible and often lack basic sanitation, healthy food, healthcare, etc. The quote-unquote employers pay the quote-unquote employees little or nothing. The underage youth do not appear to be supervised by any adults at nighttime and/or are unsure of whom they are with and what activities they are engaging in. Minors are found to be engaging in sex prostitution, and the adults are almost surely the ones 100% benefiting from all the profits. The people there display signs of vast financial resources, such as brand new cell phones, expensive jewelry, brand new designer shows, etc. yet there is no obvious or apparent source of income readily available. The quote-unquote employees live in a happy ending massage business or otherwise not leave the company's building without prior permission. The quote-unquote staff have multiple cell phones and/or a ton of accounts for their social media profiles and communication. The workers are cohabitating with their employer. Every response these quote-unquote employees give to others who inquire about their status seem practiced and as if reading from a script. The quote-unquote employees must work incredibly long hours or are immediately available whenever needed. The employees are way too sexual for their age or the current situation. The quote-unquote employees appear afraid and overly compliant. None of the employees seem capable of speaking to anyone by herself, himself, or themselves. The quote-unquote staff wears sexual clothing that is not appropriate for the circumstances and is often sexually suggestive. It appears someone has been hitting and striking the employees. This is not an all-inclusive list of red flags and signs that someone is human trafficking others, but these are indeed some of the most common signs of human trafficking activities. If your friend or loved one is a victim of human trafficking or sex trafficking and you want to bring them home, or if the state of Oklahoma or the federal government has accused you of sex trafficking or human trafficking and you want legal assistance, then hire a human trafficking private investigator or hire a sex trafficking private investigator from the best private investigation agency in Oklahoma to conduct human trafficking investigations or sex trafficking investigations on your behalf.